On the table today at Squirrel Stampede, we have the Fall 2025 lineup of Sonic the Hedgehog, and you will be pleased to see that Dr. Eggman has brought back his giant Eggman mech, this time with hammers. That's dangerous. And maybe more interesting is this giant Mecha Sonic, a giant metal Sonic from Sonic the Hedgehog 2, now with even more size, scale, and sharpness. Ouch! And have you seen the Sonic Digital Pack yet? The Pixelated Sonic figures? These are super clever. We've been wanting to see something like this for years. Pixelated, just like we saw back in the 16-bit days. And also, I'll throw in the Sonic X Transformers crossover series that came out earlier in the year. Poor Sonic and Tails, they must have been captured by Eggman, trapped in their own mechs for whatever evil purposes. I don't know the lore, but it's gotta be something like that. So you want to see everything Sonic for the fall 2025? Follow and I'll show you everything that we can see.
Squirrel Stampede.
Please swipe.
Squash share.
And squirrel line.
There's so much to Sonic about. Where do we start? This is a Sonic the Hedgehog giant Mecha Sonic versus Sonic. How funny, I was so excited for Mecha Sonic, I did not notice little Sonic back there. We've seen a Mecha Sonic before, haven't we? Bonk. Sure, in action figure form we have, but now it's giant and with sound effects.
No.
And that must explain why this was so expensive. I think it ran in at about $35 on the register, or maybe even $40. I didn't realize it had sound effects. I figured it was just a large-sized figure. But it does some things. Glowing red eye, opening and closing thumb, and jet propulsion? One of many robots modeled after Sonic, Mecha Sonic protects the Death Egg from all intruders. Sonic will need to watch out for his deadly saw-blade quills. The battle is on. I actually can still defeat this level. It's certainly all about the timing of that buzzsaw. And also if you're good at spin attack jumping right when he lurches at you. It's really radical they made a large-scale figure of this foe. Shall we unbox? Slicey. Yikes, this one's big. This one's big and sharp. I probably won't need a pizza cutter any longer or any sort of knife accessory in the kitchen with this guy around. I mean, we can cut anything apart. Clocking this mecha in at about 8 inches in height, so a double height, or more so than this 3.5-inch character. And really well done, sculpted and modeled and made. It's got everything you would want in a Metal Mech Sonic. Really quite terrifying, really quite terrifying. This is a very fun piece for your Sonic collection. It works pretty well too for either scale, I would say. Like he's giant right now versus a little Sonic, but throw in a 4-inch Sonic and you got a pretty good match too. Although in first appearance he was never meant to be that giant, he's just a metal replica of Sonic to fight. Yeah, maybe just a little bit taller than Sonic, but pretty much same in scale, but this is a giant oversized version. So the two other features that make this guy spendy, of course, is the light up ocular. And one click down on the back spine and we've got a light on its eye. Open the pod bay doors, Sonic, please. So with one click you get just a light up effect, but with 2 clicks of the spine, and we should get a throbbing, glowing sequence of on and off in red scariness. So kind of a nice little secondary effect. Oh, and the back thrusters that throb on and off too. And you could just do one solid light too. Not very large back there, very tiny, hard to see. But sadly, no sounds. For some reason I thought I was sold on sounds. It's just lights. Just lights. I really, really wanted to hear the terrifying sound of the saw blade. It's probably one of the most vicious 16-bit sounds out there. It really scares you and makes the level so hard because it feels like you're actually fighting metal and it makes your fingers cringe in fighting this guy. So I was really upset it didn't have that sound effect feature, especially for the price point. So it's just a light up effect on that eye. Once again, on in a double click for a throbbing evilness of light. The other effect that increases price and maybe stability are his shoes. Or should I say, wheelie shoes. And they're wheelie, wheelie cool. So we have wheels underneath his flats, and well, it's probably the most dramatic transformation you're ever gonna see on channel. Right now they're flat, so if we are tap dancing him on deck, it's pretty flat, except for if you kind of lean back, then you get the wheels back there. So right now he's in flat mode. Now watch this. You're watching? Watch closely, because this is the most insane retraction you are ever going to see. So we're going to click on the top part of the kick and then see the wheels come out. They'll retract just in a little bit more, and then there you go. Do you see that? Can you see how far the distance of these wheels are off the floor from these kicks? That's got to be at least a 16th or maybe a 32nd of an inch. They are barely coming out. Notice how when I click, they do come out farther. I wish they would hold at this distance, but they don't. So that's all the way in. That's when I click down, and when I let go, that's where it rests at. So it's just this tiny bit. Love the engineering on that. And then you'll want to do with that both shoes, and he should be now ready to glide and slide all flory-like. But, I don't know. It's a little rough. There's a little bit of friction in there, because again, they're not really fully extended as well as they could be. That's kind of how he works, though. Kind of how he works in that first battle in Sonic 2. He just kind of skims the surface really fast. Also making that just incredible, scary sound. When he's coming at you, you're just like, oh boy, is this it? And you have no rings. You have no rings in that final battle, so you have to do everything perfect. Oh. So it's a little bit frictiony on the table. Maybe that's a good design. Maybe if the wheels had been lower, he'd just fly off the table. So it's kind of an interesting, fun extra to this figure. As for anything else, supposedly he has 16 points of articulation. So let's see what we can find. Most of them. Head rotation up top usually, but not very far. Not very far at all. The electronics probably are saying, no, don't do that. Then we go to the shoulders, and they rotate and they reach out a little bit. Elbows on a hinge to rotate. We've got knuckles that move and a thumb that moves. Knuckles will like that. I do not believe I have any rotation in that torso. Oh, if this is a point of rotation, it's like less than 5 degrees. Then we've got hips that bend and reach out a little bit. Knees that kick down and bend a little bit, maybe 45. And then some things are happening in that ankle bone. So I guess that all adds up to 16 points of articulation. Really, it's pretty good. It's pretty good for JAKKS Pacific. They usually don't go overkill. Well, sometimes they do. It's good enough. I guess you could call that a point of articulation too. It's actually pretty neat. I think it would look really cool on a shelf having a main villain other than Eggman standing around. And so now we've got big guy and little guy in mecha form. The price point is a little high, again, around $35, $40. I foresee this guy showing up though like at a Ross, you know, for like $20. So maybe we hold off and it'll show up at better prices. I'm liking it though. This is one of my most favorite characters in the Sonicverse just because I remember and recall playing it and being so sweaty palmed because figuring out his sequence was a pretty trick back in the day. So let's slide on this guy back here. Before we get to the big guy, let's check out the little guys, the digital pack. These are really ingenious. The 2.5-inch figure scale has a pixel pack collection. Nonsense this collection. And this might be from one of the earliest Sonic the Hedgehog Squirrel Stampede reviews. Back when Tommy had Sonic, they did this cool line of figures where they pixel printed onto their figures. And I think even back then I was saying, oh, wouldn't it have been nice to actually have some blocky pixel figures? And here, what is this? How old are these? I don't see a date. At least 10 years old. At least 10 years later, we get actual pixelated Sonic figures of the big three. Digital Knuckles, Digital Sonic, Digital Tails. And for being square, they're looking high design. Let's get them out. Oh, I love the backdrop of this pack original Sonic. So nice. Tails. Knuckles. And a Sonic. And there we run out of pack. Oop, sorry Nux. The three looking really good here, and I'm pleased to say they're also articulated. They are not just blocky standalone figurette statue things. They are fully articulated figures. Look at that. We move their arms up and down. Head rotation if you can with those quills back there. Hips that move and kick, and a rotation. They could have easily just made these solid, but they went with it. Full-on figures. It's the 2.5-inch figure verse, right? I believe so. Yep. And I hope That was an epic flip Knuckles. I hope we see these in the 4-inch scale too. I'd really like to see a larger version of this team. I bet we will, as they've got to be running out of characters at this point. So there you have Sonic, checking him out with the old Tommy. It's fun to see him full-on pixelated. It always appeared to be a little odd with the painted pixelized work, but a full-on blocky figure looking good. That must be pretty tricky to do, I wonder, in the factory of molding and sculpting and things, getting things so smooth and straight and blocky, edgy, that sort of thing. I can see that maybe being a little complicated. So it's a worthy effort and a worthy result from good old JAKKS Pacific on these three. So that brings us to this year's all-new 2025 Sonic the Hedgehog Hammer Egg Robot Giant Eggman Mech. Not since 2021, I believe, is since we've seen our last giant mech from JAKKS. They had pulled off the previous mech with such spectacular fashion. Does he still work? I had to pull him out of the dark shadows to get him working again. Let's see if I can give him a hit. Oh, I got my paw stuck. There's level 1 damage. And a second level. There's level 2. What happens with level 3 damage? And down goes the coconut. I kept my guy repacked to keep him clean, and after about 2.5 years of packaging, the grease from the mechanism inside here, because this thing is heavily, it's a heavy dude of mechanics. The grease had slowly, and it's doing it again, it is oozing from the bottom. I was like, where is this coming from? So I kept him well preserved. But because of his prior defeat, Eggman has rebuilt a new mech, the Hammer Egg Robot Mech. Could you say this would be more from Sonic 3, maybe? He kinda had a weirder mech in 3. Don't think it had legs, though. It's up to an impressive same scale and size, though, I believe. Maybe just a little bit larger. We'll see out of pack. Over on the back of the box, the Hammer Egg Robot attacks. Yeah, I feel like the upper deck on this one is really reminiscent from Sonic 3, but with legs. With a 360 spin attack, this thing's gonna go bonkers. A little worried on that too though, because sometimes with the previous mech, he'd like to just fall apart out of nowhere. I kinda like a less gimmicky stuff, but it's gonna be interesting to see how this pulls off. Wow, back here, I swear, under here, I have something very similar to this from way back in the day. Is that like a reissue? I wonder. Alright, let's smash this one out of the box. Alright, JAKKS, how am I supposed to unbox a completely tightened zip tie around the waist of Eggman without destruction? That's a pickle. Okay, let's just not talk about how difficult that was to cut. Ooh. And there's standing the striking Hammer Egg Robot on the table. Goodness, this thing is mighty big. It's got these rotating arms around in 360 and then full on rotation all around for total sonic plummeting and leg detaching. Whoops. Oh, careful, careful. It's a little fragile right now. Scaling, pretty huge scale. There goes that leg again. Reminds me a lot of the previous, with like some faulty levers inside maybe. When Eggman builds big, he builds big, alright. Clocking this one in at approximately 9 inches in height. Clocking this one in at approximately 9 inches in height. With a reach of approximately 13 to 14 inches. Just enormous, just enormous. However, not as, say, detail-oriented as, say, the previous. Plastic looking a little more shiny red, a little more toy-like than the previous version of 2021. It's giant, it's clunky, it's big. We've got the feature, of course, to break apart. There on the center chest panel, almost hidden inside, there is the release mechanism for destruction. Can we give that one a tap? That's one arm. I don't think I even released it, honestly. It's much tighter than the predecessor. Oh, Oh, there goes an arm. And Eggman will be happy to know that it instantly fell on poor Sonic. And, well, the rest of the impact on the legs is, you know, they felt like they were already off. Well, it's a little clumsy. I kind of wish the legs would stay on, in my opinion, just to kind of not have such crashing. Somehow, everything holds together by these keys in the arms, I think. I hear a lot of ratcheting inside. And getting it back together with these powerful punchers. How do the powerful punchers work, by the way? Somewhere in the shoulders, maybe? They detach, like so. It's a little odd, it functions a little odd, but if you squeeze in these shoulders, he's gonna punch down or out wherever these things are gonna fly. And they give you about anywhere from a foot to 5 feet in reach. So I don't know about this guy. I think the previous version was a little more fun. This one's got some interesting punch to it. I do like the 360, that rotates so smoothly. Around and around and around. But I kind of wish instead of him busting apart like the previous version, that was its thing. I kind of wish this one had something a little bit different built up inside it. They can get pretty frustrating when you're goofing around with them and they just start falling apart without even pressing the release button, like that leg on mine. But sometimes these are all about the destructive play and you want to go for the big hits. So it just depends on where you're at with it. It's a great display piece. It's huge. It's menacing. It's Eggman. That thus then leaves us with a really weird Sonic crossover, and that is the Sonic the Hedgehog Transformers Wingtail and Blue Booster. These came out way earlier in the summer, actually, a 2025 crossover collaboration with the Sonic and Transformers. I see them flooding the shelves at my local Target. I'm thinking they're just too expensive for the crossover fans to pick up. Kind of like the Turtles crossover truck, the Turtle van, and a few other Transformer crossovers. They get so expensive. I believe this pack is around $50 and most people say, yeah, that's a little bit too much. But since I'm a super fan of both Sonic and Transformers, this is one I had to pick up and see. So out of the box we go. And out of box, primed for action, Blue Booster and Wingtail. Well, so far, out of pack and standing, looking pretty good when not holding on to them. They feel a little fragile and weak plastic-wise, but here they are looking pretty good outside, better than what they did inside. I was a little worried about Blue Buster at first, but now standing with weapon and shield looking actually kind of fun. Robot mode, kind of like more of the cool team of Transformers. Then Wingtail looking okay, a little panely, a little wingy in places. It's difficult to do a bi-wing plane. Unfortunately, they feel a little fragile in their construction. That's kind of where the Transformers are going though recently in modern times, just thinner plastics and lighter weighted flanges. But still, a pretty interesting looking robot mode of Tails here in his red plane, and Sonic as a blue speedster car, which that matches both of their personalities pretty well. Oh boy, there's going to be a lot of steps of transformation with these though. Interesting weapon choice with a gumball blaster, but I do like that shield, the bubble shield of Sonic. So not to take too much of your time with the transformation process, 27 steps for Sonic and 32 steps for Tails. We're just going to get these guys transformed in one quick motion. There we go. And wait, hang on. There we go. And so after transforming these two, I'm feeling a little bit different for them. I'm liking them all the more. Sonic, or Blue Buster, was a very fast, zippy, fun transformation. Everything locked together pretty well except for this last lower panel. Can't get that to clip in. There's always something that makes these about 99% impossible to transform. But it was fun. It's a slick blue Sonic Speed Racer. A few extra details would have been nice. I think it's a little bit plain, but the transformation process was a lot of fun with this one. Then there was Tails, or Wingtail. I had a little more trouble with Wingtail. Pretty easy and really fun transformation actually, except for I had some issues getting his front propeller engine to lock down into the body. In fact, these notches in the engine really fooled me. I thought these notches here were actually going to slip into some notches that actually fold inside the engine. So I spent a good 20 minutes trying to bust those in, when in fact all I needed to do was squeeze and press in harder, and then they popped locked in. But everything else was really satisfactory, or satisfying. I meant to say satisfying in a bi-wing plane transformation. It just folded up really well. I love seeing the Tails red biplane as his alt mode. But it was a really smooth transformation, and I really liked this one once I figured out that issue with the engine. And I like to do this with the props. Most likely with these two, though, I'm going to be keeping them in robot mode. They'll just stand better against with all the other Autobots. Or wait, are they Decepticons? I'm not sure. Decepticon Blue? Autobot Red? Well, I'll keep them in robot mode, so let's transform back real quickly. And there they are, back to robot mode. So really, after messing around with both modes, both vehicle and robot, I'm really enjoying these two. They've turned out to be totally awesome. I'm going to be placing these nearby my studio chair to transform back and forth a little bit here for a few weeks. They're that enjoyable. I think both modes turned out to be very enjoyable. Lots of articulation on these guys for fun positioning and posing. So Tails, lots of fun with accessories and moving parts and limbs and arms. And even the tail extra wings back here are probably his tails, right? And so even though these turned out to be overcosted spendier than normally, although Transformers these days are just a fortune, I'm just enjoying these two quite a bit. They're fun to throw in today. At this very moment, we're probably working on the Beyblade X tournament. Squirrel Stampede first annual. We'll see if we can get that going even more. It's a lot to set up. And then also, I may need some ideas for these Zuru Smashers Slam Heroes. I'll pop up a post soon and we'll come up with some ideas on how to destroy them. If you liked today's video, please give us a squirrel but comment your favorite, most interesting Sonic Fall 2025 thing we saw today. Thank you so much for watching. And here's a few videos that YouTube recommends. Go ahead, click one on up and see what's going on. That's what I have to say about that.